I am Sarah Johnson, and I've spent 35 years of my life in a small New England town. Married for 7 years, I work at Sweet Memories, the bakery that my husband John's family has run for generations. The aroma of freshly baked bread wafting through the air early in the morning and the warm conversations with regular customers have become part of my daily routine. Good morning, Sarah. The smell of cinnamon rolls is heavenly as always. Mrs. Clark's voice makes me turn, and her smile warms my heart. The kindness of the people living in this town has become my emotional support, especially during the days when I struggle with infertility. We started trying for a baby in our 2nd year of marriage, but we haven't been blessed yet. Tests revealed that due to my physical condition, getting pregnant would be difficult. My husband John says, as long as we're happy together, that's all that matters, but I can't shake off the guilt of not being able to produce an heir for the long-standing family bakery. The only one who knows about this struggle is my sister-in-law, Lisa. We've known each other since high school, and she's always looked down on me since I entered on a scholarship, coming from a less affluent background. Surprisingly, she ended up marrying my brother Tom. Sarah, you're really useless, aren't you? You can't even give birth to an heir. Lisa's words still ring in my ears. She boasts about having given birth to her son Jason and continues to look down on me. On the other hand, my brother Tom has found success as a businessman working for an international company. However, the price he pays for this success is limited time with his family. With frequent long overseas business trips, his relationship with his wife and child seems to be growing distant. Sarah, Tom's going on another business trip. This time for 3 whole months. Lisa's discontented voice fills me with mixed emotions every time I hear it. I understand her loneliness, but I feel uncomfortable with her tendency to fill that void by tormenting me. Lisa's personality was likely shaped by the pampered environment she grew up in. She has a strong desire to always be the center of attention and even takes pleasure in others' misfortunes. When she learned about my infertility struggles, she began using that knowledge as a weapon to mentally corner me. Sarah, if I tell father-in-law about your infertility, you'll be kicked out of this family. She occasionally throws such threatening words at me. My father-in-law Mike is a kind, family-oriented person, but he can be strict when it comes to the issue of an heir. Lisa cleverly exploits this fact. Amidst these complex family relationships, I desperately try to maintain my place while going about my daily life. Taking pride in my work at the bakery, cherishing my relationship with my husband, and believing in the happiness that might one day come. Such days continued. And then, an event occurred that greatly shook this peaceful daily life. It was on a calm autumn afternoon, just as I was about to head home after finishing work at the bakery. My cell phone rang, and I hesitated for a moment when I saw the name displayed on the screen. It was a call from Lisa. Hello, Lisa. My voice carried a hint of tension. A call from Lisa was unusual and typically not a good sign. Oh, Sarah. Perfect timing. Hey, I have a favor to ask. Lisa's voice sounded rushed, unlike her usual haughty tone. Did something happen? Well, I have a sudden errand to run. Could you take care of my dog? I was surprised. I had never heard that Lisa had a dog. A dog? Since when did you have one? I don't have time for detailed explanations. Just go to the house and feed it. The key is in the mailbox. Lisa's words were hurried, and I got the impression she was hiding something. However, feeling the responsibility of caring for a living creature, I hesitantly agreed. All right. I'll go. Thanks. I'm counting on you. After the call ended, I was filled with mixed emotions. Lisa's attitude was different from usual, and I had a suspicion that there might be something more to this. However, if there really was a dog, I couldn't ignore it. When I returned home, my husband John had already arrived. I told him about Lisa's request while he was preparing dinner in the kitchen. I got a call from Lisa. She asked me to take care of her dog. John furrowed his brow. I've never heard of Lisa having a dog. I thought the same thing. But I can't ignore it if it's about taking care of an animal. John placed his hand on my shoulder. I understand your kindness, but I'm a bit worried considering your relationship with Lisa. I let out a deep sigh. I know. But if there really is a dog and I didn't take care of it, my conscience wouldn't allow it. John thought for a moment, then slowly nodded. I understand. But if anything happens, call me immediately. I'll come right away. Those words made me feel stronger. With my husband's support, I felt I could handle any situation. Thank you, John. It'll be fine, I'm sure it's just taking care of a dog. Even as I said this, anxiety was swirling in my heart. As I prepared to go to Lisa's house, I questioned whether this decision was right many times. However, the thought that a creature's life might be at stake strengthened my resolve. I'm going now. After giving John a quick kiss, I set out for Lisa's house. While driving, various scenarios ran through my mind. The journey to Lisa's house is only about 15 minutes, but during that time, my anxiety continued to grow. It'll be fine, I reassured myself as I drove towards Lisa's house. At this point, I had no idea that this decision made out of goodwill would drastically change my life. Upon arriving at Lisa's house, the air in the quiet residential area felt strangely heavy. As I stood at the entrance and took the key from the mailbox, my hand trembled slightly. The moment I inserted the key and opened the door, a strange odor hit my nose. What's this smell? It was a mix of the stench of rotting garbage and some indescribable unpleasant odor. As I stepped into the entrance, darkness and silence enveloped me. Hello? Is anyone there? There was no response. As I cautiously moved down the hallway, I saw scattered clothes and trash on the floor. There were marks on the walls as if something had rubbed against them, and furniture was arranged haphazardly. This scene was completely at odds with the meticulous personality I knew Lisa to have. When I stepped into the living room, what met my eyes was a scene beyond imagination. Jason. In the dimly lit corner of the room, a small figure was huddled. As I rushed over, I found Jason lying there, emaciated and wearing dirty clothes. His eyes were vacant, and I could see he was barely breathing. Jason, are you okay? Can you hear me? It's Auntie. I desperately called out to him, but Jason barely responded. His body was skinny, his hair was tangled, and his clothes were dirty. And beside him, this is empty milk bottles and jars of spoiled baby food were scattered around. These were traces of meals unsuitable for a 5-year-old child. What surprised me even more was the envelope placed next to them. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and found several photographs inside. They showed Lisa in intimate poses with an unknown man. A hotel receipt was also enclosed. Could it be Lisa? Faced with evidence of an affair, I was at a loss for words. However, this was not the time for that. Seeing Jason struggling to breathe in front of me, I came to my senses. It's okay, Jason. Auntie will help you. I picked Jason up. His body was surprisingly light, and I could feel his bones protruding. There was no time to hesitate. I had to take him to the hospital immediately. As I put him in the car, Jason let out a small moan. That sound tightened my heart. It's all right now. Auntie is here with you. As I said this, I strengthened my resolve. I can't ignore this. Even if Lisa becomes furious, I will protect Jason. With this vow in my heart, I drove towards the hospital. When we arrived at the hospital's emergency room, the medical staff immediately took Jason to the treatment room. I waited in the waiting area, feeling overwhelmed with anxiety and impatience for the diagnosis results. Mrs. Johnson. After about an hour, a middle-aged doctor in a white coat approached me. Yes, that's me. How is Jason's condition? The doctor began explaining with a serious expression. Jason's condition is extremely critical. In addition to severe dehydration and malnutrition, we can see bruises all over his body. Moreover, there are significant signs of long-term psychological stress. Hearing these words, I was at a loss for words. The situation was more serious than I had imagined, and my chest tightened. What's the outlook for his treatment? The next few days will be crucial. He needs 24-hour observation in the intensive care unit. To be honest, recovery will take time. As I listened to the doctor's words, anger and sadness welled up inside me. How could this happen? By the way, are you his guardian? I hesitated for a moment at the doctor's question. No, I'm his aunt. I'm trying to contact his parents, but... As I said this, I decided to call Lisa. With trembling fingers, I dialed the number, and after a while, the call connected. Hello, Lisa. Oh, Sarah. How was taking care of the dog? Lisa's voice had returned to its usual arrogance. I took a deep breath, trying to calmly explain the situation. Lisa, listen. Jason has been taken to the hospital. He's severely malnourished and... Huh? What are you talking about? I just asked you to take care of the dog. I was stunned by Lisa's response. Lisa, when I went to your house, Jason was collapsed. He's in the intensive care unit now. Stop joking around. That can't be true. Panic began to mix into Lisa's voice. Lisa, this is not a joke. Jason's life is in danger. Come to the hospital immediately. After a moment of silence, Lisa hung up. When I tried to call back, it seemed her phone was turned off. I let out a deep sigh. Lisa's cold response filled me with anger and sadness. However, now I need to prioritize Jason. Next, I called my husband John. After briefly explaining the situation, John said he would come to the hospital right away. Sarah, don't bear this burden alone. I'll be there soon. John's words calmed me a little. However, there was still something else I needed to do. Taking a deep breath, I dialed the next number. Hello, father-in-law. It's Sarah. I'm terribly sorry, but there's an urgent matter. As I explained the situation to my father-in-law Mike, my resolve solidified. We need to come together as a family to protect Jason, even if it means damaging my relationship with Lisa. After hanging up, I stood in front of the treatment room again. Looking at Jason's small body through the glass, surrounded by IVs and medical equipment, I quietly spoke to him. Hang in there, Jason. Auntie is here for you. I couldn't imagine the difficulties that lay ahead, but I vowed in my heart to protect this child. As I felt this, I sensed the beginning of a long night. As I waited in the hospital corridor, I heard hurried footsteps approaching. Turning around, I saw my husband John and father-in-law Mike rushing towards me with worried looks on their faces. Sarah, are you all right? John embraced me. How's Jason? Mike's voice lacked its usual calmness. I explained the situation to them in detail. Jason's condition, Lisa's strange behavior, and the evidence of the affair I had discovered. After I finished speaking, Mike's face had turned red with anger. Does Lisa have anything to say for herself? Mike asked in a low voice. I can't get in touch with her. She hung up and... At that moment, a nurse approached us. Mrs. Johnson, the patient's mother has arrived. Turning around, I saw Lisa standing there. Her eyes were red, and her makeup was smeared. What happened? My baby. Lisa pleaded in a tearful voice. Mike stepped forward and spoke in a stern tone. Lisa, explain yourself. Why did you leave Jason in such a state? Lisa flinched for a moment but quickly began to make excuses. I was desperate too. Tom is never home, and taking care of Jason is so hard. That's no excuse for abusing a child. John raised his voice. Lisa continued, tears streaming down her face. I was under so much stress. I just let my guard down for a moment. But I love Jason. Really. Those words made anger well up inside me. You love him. In that state. And what about the evidence of your affair? Lisa's face turned pale. What do you mean? There were photos of you with an unknown man next to Jason. Lisa was at a loss for words for a moment but quickly began making excuses again. Oh, that. He's just a friend. Jason must have Stop lying. Mike's voice echoed through the corridor. A nurse approached and asked us to be quiet. After that, we moved to a small conference room in the hospital to hold a family meeting. Mike opened his mouth. First, we need to contact Tom. John nodded and took out his smartphone. It'll be an international call, but I'll make it right now. While we were trying to contact Tom, we discussed how to proceed from here. We agreed that Jason's treatment and recovery were the top priorities, that legal action might be necessary against Lisa, and how we as a family would overcome this crisis. During the discussion, Lisa sat silently. Her expression seemed to be a mix of fear and regret. It was 30 minutes later when we finally got in touch with Tom. After hearing the situation, Tom promised to arrange his return immediately. As this long day drew to a close, we were all exhausted, but one thing was clear in our resolve: to protect Jason and restore our family bonds. That would become our mission from now on. Tom returned to the country 3 days after Jason was hospitalized. He rushed to the hospital looking tired and stood by Jason's bedside. How did it come to this? Tom's voice was filled with deep sadness and self-reproach. We gathered in the conference room again and explained the course of events in detail. Tom listened silently, but his expression gradually changed to anger. Lisa, explain yourself. Why did you put Jason through this? Tom's voice was low, filled with suppressed anger. Lisa began to speak through her tears. I didn't mean for this to happen. But you're always work. You never understand how I feel. That's no excuse for abusing a child. Tom raised his voice. And what about those photos? Lisa fell silent for a moment, then answered in a small voice. That person is a colleague from work. Just a friend. Stop lying. Mike shouted. There was even a hotel receipt. Lisa's shoulders slumped, and she finally admitted the truth. I'm sorry. I was lonely. But it was really just a momentary mistake. Tom let out a deep sigh and held his head in his hands. Why did Jason have the photos? Lisa answered in a trembling voice. Jason. I found him rummaging through my bag. I yelled at him. Then he ran away with the photos. At that moment, we all understood the same thing. Jason had become the target of abuse because he discovered his mother's secret. As silence dominated the room, I gathered my courage to speak. I think we should focus on Jason's recovery and rebuilding our family rather than assigning blame right now. John squeezed my hand, showing his support. Sarah's right. Let's put Jason first. Mike slowly nodded as well. You're right. We'll think about legal issues later. For now, let's focus on Jason's treatment. After a long silence, Tom quietly began to speak. Thank you, everyone. Especially you, Sarah. If it weren't for you. He choked up. I smiled back. We're family. With those words, the atmosphere in the room seemed to soften a little. Lisa, sobbing, whispered. I want to start over. For Jason, for our family. Tom looked at Lisa with a stern expression. I can't forgive you easily. But for Jason's sake, we need to overcome this as a family. Mike stood up and, looking out the window, said, This will be a long journey. But with family bonds, we can surely overcome it. We all quietly nodded at those words. Overcoming this ordeal and becoming a stronger family. And above all, restoring a happy childhood to Jason. This became our new mission. As we left the conference room, John put his arm around my shoulders. Sarah, your courage and love have saved this family. I couldn't hold back my tears at those words. The road ahead won't be easy. But with our family bonds, I'm sure we can overcome it. Believing this, I started walking forward. Several days after the family meeting, we were faced with a crucial decision. Whether or not to take legal action against Lisa for the sake of Jason's future. In the hospital corridor, Tom approached me. Sarah, I want to hear your opinion. Do you think we should press charges against Lisa? I took a deep breath and chose my words carefully. Tom, to be honest, I'm torn. What Lisa did is unforgivable. But I wonder if criminal punishment is really in Jason's best interest. Tom nodded quietly, gazing out the window. I understand. I'm struggling with the same dilemma. In the end, we decided to go through family court to mandate counseling and parenting education programs for Lisa. We chose to prioritize family restoration over criminal prosecution. The next challenge was Jason's custody. Tom and Lisa were going to separate, and we needed someone to temporarily take care of Jason. At a gathering of the whole family, Mike made a suggestion. Sarah, John, would you two be willing to take care of Jason? John and I looked at each other in surprise. But I began to say, when John squeezed my hand. Let's do it, Sarah. I'm sure we can do something for him. Tom was looking at us with a serious expression. Please, Sarah. I believe you two can make Jason happy. Those words spread warmth in my heart. So this is what family means. All right. We'll do our best to take care of Jason. A few weeks after that decision, Jason moved into our home. There were some awkward moments at first, but Jason gradually opened his heart to us. One night, just before bedtime, Jason timidly asked me, Auntie, is it okay for me to be here? Tears welling up in my eyes, I gently hugged Jason. Of course, Jason. You can always be here. You're our precious family. Hearing those words, tears glistened in Jason's eyes. As the days passed, our family bonds deepened. Lisa also began to change little by little, and during her visits with Jason, she started to interact with him more sincerely. Tom adjusted his work schedule to return home as frequently as possible. I felt deep respect for his efforts to prioritize family time. One day, while I was working at the bakery, John rushed in with an excited look on his face. Sarah, something unbelievable happened. What is it? I asked, and John answered with shining eyes. Jason laughed for the first time. A genuine smile. And he said, "Thank you," to us. At that moment, warmth flooded my heart. We had truly become a family in the real sense. And through this experience, I realized that I had grown significantly as well. While the struggle with infertility was still present, I understood that it wasn't everything in my life. A loving family, a cherished job, and irreplaceable Jason. All of these were enriching my life. With each new morning, my heart fills with gratitude. I've learned firsthand that family bonds can overcome any difficulty. 6 months have passed since then. Jason has become remarkably healthy and happily reports making friends at school. On a Sunday morning, we all went out for a picnic. Watching Jason run around innocently on the lush green grass, I savored the happiness. Tom and Lisa are also gradually mending their relationship. They attend parenting classes together, making sincere efforts. Amidst all this, an unexpected event occurred. I had been feeling unwell for a few days, so I went to the hospital for a checkup. The result was surprising. "Congratulations, Mrs. Johnson. You're 8 weeks pregnant." I placed my hand on my belly in disbelief at the doctor's words. A long-cherished wish had suddenly become reality. When I returned home and told John, he was so overjoyed that he hugged me and spun me around. "Sarah, really? Oh, how wonderful." That night, as I lay in bed, I quietly shed tears. Tears of joy and gratitude. Perhaps by saving Jason, we saved ourselves too. The importance of family love, the value of bonds, and the significance of maintaining hope. We learned all of these. Tomorrow, a new life begins again. There will surely be challenges. But I'm certain we can overcome them. I believe we can move forward, step by step, together with our beloved family. The morning sunlight streaming through the window seemed to promise a future filled with hope.